Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be diving into some pretty dark territory.
Oh,
Yeah. We're going to be looking at what happens when societies decide to just abandon absolute truths, and sort of just go with a do what feels right kind of mentality.
okay.
And the material we're going to be looking at for this is an analysis of Judges chapters 17 through 21. So have you ever wondered what a society looks like when everybody just gets to decide what's right? Well, let's just say the results aren't pretty.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing here is we're not really dealing with hypotheticals. Judges actually gives us a historical account of this very thing happening in ancient Israel. The text describes a time where there was no king in Israel, and every man did that which was right in his own eyes. And this really sets the stage for just the chaos and the violence that follows.
Yeah, and the book doesn't waste any time getting to the chaos. Right off the bat, we run into this guy named Micah who steals a bunch of silver from his own mother. And then she takes that stolen silver and uses it to create idols. It's a pretty messed up family dynamic.
Wow. Well, it really shows you how religious practices can get corrupted when personal desires kind of take over, established truths. They try to justify what they're doing, but they're basically just crafting their own version of the truth.
Yeah, they're distorting it.
Exactly.
Okay, so things are already starting to go off the rails. And then the tribe of Dan comes along, and they're looking for a place to settle. And they come across Micah's idols. And instead of seeing how wrong this whole situation is, they decide to steal the idols for themselves. They even convince Micah's priest to come with them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty shocking escalation of the whole thing.
Well, the fact that the tribe of Dan, God's chosen people, that they would embrace these false gods, it's really powerful. It shows just how easy idolatry can take root and spread.
Yeah.
Even among those who should know better. It really foreshadows this broader decline in moral judgment that we see throughout the whole book.
It feels like a textbook example of moral relativism, where, individual truth is given the same weight as objective truth. It's a slippery slope.
It is.
Which can lead to widespread confusion and eventually societal breakdown.
Absolutely. And you see the consequences of this moral decline. Really painfully evident in what happens next. One of the most disturbing stories in Judges involves a Levite and his concubine. And this is meant to be like a stark wake-up call to the depravity that just gripped Israel.
Yeah, and this next part is hard to hear. But it's important to understand the moral crisis that's going on in Israel. The Levite's concubine suffers this horrific violence. She's abused and ultimately left for dead. And the Levite, instead of seeking justice, through the established legal process, he takes matters into his own hands. And it's a really shocking act of brutality.
Yeah, his actions are born out of grief and rage. But it highlights how dangerous it is when we try to seek justice on our own terms. Violence often just creates more violence, and it perpetuates the cycle of pain and retribution.
Yeah, and that cycle of violence explodes into a full-blown civil war between the tribes of Israel and Benjamin. And the irony here is that the tribes unite to fight against injustice. But in doing so, they nearly wipe out an entire tribe. Thousands die in this conflict. It's a tragic illustration of how good intentions, when they're divorced from this foundation of absolute truth, can lead to devastating consequences.
Yeah, and what's so tragic is that the Israelites, they only turn to God after they've suffered all these huge losses. They should have sought his guidance from the beginning. It's such a crucial lesson for all of us. Humility and reliance on a higher moral authority. That's what's essential to navigate these really complex ethical dilemmas.
So they win the war. But then they're faced with another dilemma. They've almost decimated the tribe of Benjamin, and they need to find a way to restore them. But their solution is far from ideal.
Right. They decide to take wives for the surviving Benjaminites by source.
Yeah.
It's a desperate attempt to save the tribe. But their methods go against God's principles.
Yeah.
And it just perpetuates the cycle of violence they were trying to stop.
It's a tragic irony. They set out to address injustice, but they end up creating more of it. Their actions, they were intended for good, but they ultimately just paved the way for more suffering. And Judges doesn't shy away from highlighting this. The final words are like a chilling indictment of the whole situation.
Yes, the book concludes with this stark statement. In those days there was no king in Israel. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes. And this concluding statement, it's not just a summary of events. It's a warning about the dangers of abandoning shared moral principles and allowing this individual interpretation of right to reign supreme.
It's a sobering reminder that when a society loses its moral compass, chaos and suffering inevitably follow. And these events happened thousands of years ago, but they raise questions that are still relevant today. How do we ensure that our society doesn't fall into the same traps? What safeguards can we put in place to prevent right from becoming subjective and leading to chaos?
That's the core issue, isn't it? Judges, it's not just an ancient history lesson. It's like a mirror, reflecting the potential consequences of abandoning absolute truths in any society, including our own.
And if we look around, we can actually see echoes of this moral relativism playing out in various ways today.
Absolutely.
What comes to mind for you? What are some modern-day parallels that highlight the dangers of this do what feels right mentality?
Well, just look at the debates we see on issues like social justice, bioethics, or even just political discourse in general. A lot of times the core disagreements stem from fundamentally different worldviews. When individuals or groups reject this shared understanding of objective truth, or these foundational moral principles, it makes productive dialogue nearly impossible. Each side just retreats into its own echo chamber, convinced they're right, and the result is division, polarization, and even violence.
It's like everyone's speaking a different language, with no common ground for understanding. How do we even begin to bridge those divides?
Well, it's challenging. But I think Judges offers a few clues. Remember, the Israelites only found resolution when they finally turned to God in humility and sought His guidance. And while not everyone shares the same religious beliefs, the principle is still relevant, acknowledging that there might be a source of truth or wisdom beyond our individual understanding. That's a crucial step towards finding common ground.
So it's about recognizing that our limited individual perspectives might not hold all the answers. Humility seems to be key. But turning to a higher authority is just the first step. What else can we learn from judges to help us navigate these ethical dilemmas in the modern world?
Well, the book shows us the importance of established legal processes and societal structures that are rooted in justice and fairness. Remember when the Levite took matters into his own hands? It just caused more violence and chaos. We need systems in place that can help us resolve disputes and ensure accountability. Systems grounded in principles that go beyond individual whims or emotions.
So we need a framework for justice, not just personal feelings.
Exactly.
And those systems need to be based on principles that have stood the test of time. What are some of those enduring principles that can guide us through the complexities of modern life?
Well, I think compassion, empathy, and a willingness to have open dialogue are essential. Judges shows us what happens when these qualities are absent. Division, violence, societal breakdown. We have to cultivate these qualities in ourselves and encourage them in others if we want to build a more just and compassionate world. And this involves listening to and understanding perspectives that are different from our own, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's challenging.
So, Judges, it's a cautionary tale.
It is.
But it also offers a roadmap for navigating the ethical challenges of our time. We need humility, a willingness to seek truth beyond ourselves, robust systems of justice, and the commitment to compassion and dialogue. It's a tall order.
It is.
But the alternative, as Judges so vividly illustrates, is a path that leads to chaos and destruction. It's a choice we all have to make, individually and collectively.
That's right. The book isn't meant to make us afraid. It's meant to inspire us, to live with more intention and purpose. We can choose a different path, one that leads to a more just and harmonious future.
It's daunting, but also empowering to recognize the potential for darkness, but also the power we have to shape a better reality. What a powerful concept to leave our listeners with. It's like we've uncovered this ancient map warning us about moral relativism, but it's up to each of us to navigate, our own course through this complex world.
Right.
It's a lot to think about.
It is, but Judges isn't meant to leave us feeling hopeless. It's a call to action, to be more intentional about our choices and the values we uphold.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from all this?
Well, if there's one thing I want you to remember from Judges, it's this. There's a difference between what feels right and what is right. And it's up to each of us to choose wisely.
That's a powerful statement. It really emphasizes the need for critical thinking, questioning our assumptions, and challenging the status quo, especially when it goes against our values.
Exactly. And it's also a reminder that we don't have to figure this all out on our own. We can learn from history, from people who have dealt with these same questions before. We can talk to each other, get different perspectives, and challenge our own biases. And for those who are religious, we can seek guidance from a higher power.
This deep dive has been so insightful. It's amazing how these ancient stories still speak to us today.
I know it's the mark of timeless wisdom. It goes beyond time and place. and offers insights that are relevant to every generation.
I encourage you to keep digging into these questions, explore different resources, books, articles, podcasts, anything that can help you understand this important topic.
And most importantly, don't be afraid to have those tough conversations with friends, family, colleagues. Engage with different viewpoints, challenge each other's assumptions, and together, let's try to build a world where right isn't just a personal feeling, but a shared reality, grounded in enduring principles.
What a thought-provoking way to end our exploration of Judges. The world around us might always be changing, but the principles of truth, justice, and compassion, they remain constant. It's our job to live by those principles, to be the change we want to see in the world, and to create a more just and compassionate future for everyone.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep striving to make a difference.
Wow. Yeah, this has really been something. It feels like Judges is giving us this warning about the dangers of, just doing whatever feels right. But it's still up to us to figure out how to live in the world today.
Yeah, but we don't have to be afraid. Judges is a call to action, to really think about our choices and what we value.
So as we wrap up here, what's the most important thing you want our listeners to remember from this?
That's a good question. I guess if there's just one thing to take away from Judges, it would be this. There's a difference between what feels right and what is right, and we have to choose wisely.
That's powerful. It really makes you think about, thinking critically, questioning things, and challenging the status quo when it goes against what we believe in.
Exactly, and we can do this together. We can learn from history, from those who came before us. We can talk to each other, see things from different perspectives, and challenge our own biases. And if you're a person of faith, you can always turn to a higher power for guidance.
This deep dive has been incredible. It's amazing how these ancient stories are still relevant today.
I know it's a testament to their timeless wisdom. It goes beyond time and place and offers insights that are always going to be meaningful.
So keep exploring these ideas. There are tons of resources out there, books, articles, other podcasts, anything that can help you learn more about this topic.
Yes, and don't be afraid to have those difficult conversations with your friends, family, colleagues. Hear different points of view, challenge each other, and work together to create a world where right isn't just a feeling, but a shared understanding based on strong principles.
What a great way to wrap up our exploration of Judges. The world may be constantly changing, but truth, justice, and compassion, those are timeless, and it's our responsibility to uphold them, to make the world a better place, and create a future where everyone can thrive.
Well said.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
And until next time, keep searching, keep questioning.
And keep making a difference.